I was kind of managing with like a half fish tank full of water, and I was bilging it every like 30 seconds. And I was like, yeah, I got a mile left. I'm gonna do it. Nothing's gonna stop me. And then all of a sudden it sounded like I-80 was right there at that bridge, and I was like, oh fuck. It
loud.
started coming over the front, and then I just started sinking. All right, so we wanted to get in here and talk about this. I mean, like, it's not every week we do some shit like floating a giant pumpkin down a river, and it is hard for people to understand like why I did it. It's kind of hard for people to understand. Period.
But why do anything?
Why
do anything?
Why do anything? No, so like, listen. A year ago, I guess the inception of it was. When I was a kid, I used to read Guinness Book of World Records like on the toilet till my legs fell asleep. That and like Rick Riley.
Yep, same.
And I always wanted to set a world record. You know, like it's always been in the back of my mind. Last summer, this guy, Dwayne Hansen in Missouri, he's 60 years old. So I'm like, all right, I should be able to do this maybe. But I know he's a tough SOB because I just did it. Floated in a pumpkin 38 miles down the Missouri River in Nebraska. He went from like Omaha to Nebraska City. 11 hours. He got out. He said he broke the record. Somebody had done 25 in the past or something like that, and then maybe it ratcheted up a little bit. He said that he's never doing it again, and that if anybody could break it, he would definitely tip their hat to them because they are tough. And when I saw that, I was like, I think I could do it. I know I'm tough. I like being on the river. Like, this is what I love doing. And how hard can it be? Like, you just got to sit in a pumpkin for 11 hours and that sort of thing. So I said to, on the show, I was like, this is a record that I could break. As the year went on, it got closer and closer to a time that we might actually be able to make a run for it. And we were like, holy shit, are we doing this? So I told Matt, hey, you're on this. Like, you got to figure out a stretch that we could do. I prefer the East Coast. I don't want to go to Missouri. I want to break it on the East Coast in an East Coast river. It's like my home arena, you know? I don't want to go on the road.
Home field advantage.
We wanted to do the James, but found that would be completely impossible.
Although I went to Dirty Nelly's the other night, and I ran into Tom Garstang, our friend from Malone, the guy that we had on this show, guy from Charlottesville who spent like 90-something days in the wild on the show alone, and almost won had he not fallen over and hurt his leg or whatever it was. Anyways, the guy lives around here. I always see him at the bar. We have the same favorite bar. And if it's not Dirty Nelly's, it's Miller's. I saw him there a couple weeks ago. Anyways, I told him what I was doing. He was like, you should do the James below the rapids in Richmond. Like, that thing's had, like commerce ships up and down that deal since the beginning of time. It's wide. It's not as rocky, that sort of thing. So you never know. There are other rivers out there. Like, we had Ralph, who's part of the Greenlight team, is from, up in the Pac Northwest. And he said to do the Willamette River outside Portland, okay? I know I could do the Missouri River. Not to say, like, not taking anything away from those guys. I think they're incredible. And I just, as a competitor, I believe I could do the fucking...
You're paddling on a treadmill.
It was a different animal. What you did was a different animal.
It's a different animal. I think I could do a silt bottom, straight, long river. Yeah. I mean, that river's going 5 miles an hour on average. When we got the specs on the Delaware River... Now, where we are, it was a little confusing because it is way up there. To me, it's the upper Delaware. It's not the upper Delaware. Upper Delaware proper is like in New York. But below the state line is where we kind of put in on the border of PA and New Jersey. Long story short, that stretch, supposedly, if you Google it, like what's the average speed of the Delaware River, it's going to give you this real boiled down answer. It's like 2.5 miles an hour. So we were going off these projections that if I paddle at like a 0.5 mile an hour and a mile an hour, then 3.5 miles an hour, like if we have a good run of it, it could be a day trip into the night. Like at some point, my dumbass thought that we could paddle at night.
Yeah.
Once we got out there and saw the river, you realize it's not that kind of river. And really, no kind of river is the river unless you floated 100 times that you can do it at night. So, Matt, tell them about how you got the ball rolling on this.
Yeah, so basically spent a long time researching the whole giant pumpkin community. Eventually, finally got connected to this guy in West Virginia, Ryan Cook. Ryan's a beast. Could not have done it without him. He grew us multiple giant pumpkins, including one that he didn't take off the vine until the night before. He packed it on his truck.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's the pumpkin we used. He packed it on his truck and took it all the way up to Milford, Pennsylvania for us. Stayed at the hotel with us, and the next morning jumped into the water with the Sawzall and carved you what I think was a pretty good boat.
It was a damn good boat. We beat it to hell. I mean, like, you know, also Ryan, shout out to Ryan rolling up there with his whole family.
Yeah.
His
Whole
kids in the
family.
back. I rolled up to Milton Beach where we put in, and I was talking to Ryan for a little bit, and he was talking about his kids, and he motioned to the truck. I'm like, wait, they're inside the vehicle? Like,
Yeah.
They came up, and in fact, like day one, after we'd gotten through a tough stretch, they were on the side of the river about 8-9 miles down with signs. The kids were holding signs and shit. So shout out to Ryan and them.
And one of them grew a 600-pound pumpkin.
Well, the kid has grown a 600-pound pumpkin himself.
Ridiculous.
And he was really hard on himself. He was like, yeah, man, you know, I couldn't get it done. I'm like, bro, you are like 13.
Yeah.
You grew a 600-pound pumpkin. You're going places,
Yeah.
man. All right. My kids haven't grown a single gourd. And on top of it, Ryan has 37 state records.
Yeah.
They're like world records, like vegetable world records, I think.
Yeah,
not
he doesn't
state
just
records.
grow pumpkins. He grows all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff.
Giant cucumbers.
He's all about the
Long-
quality of it too. He's not just
Yeah.
going for size. He's going for the whole deal. He's looking at the lineage of the seed
Yeah.
and making sure that he's doing the right thing.
Like
The
the
Howard
Howard
Dill Award.
That's who
if
it
you
is,
if
yeah,
you know
Howard
what
Dill.
your
It's like you know, you're like one of those champion breeders, like
Yeah.
bloodlines, like, you know, pumpkins, man. It's not just a bulldog is a bulldog is a bulldog.
Right.
You know, he's growing pumpkins that are thick, that can take the beating of the river. He's also like part of that pumpkin community, so you kind of know when people are going to be breaking the record, when they're not going to be breaking the record. Like on message boards and Facebook is a big spot for, I think, the pumpkin community. There were some rumblings of somebody trying to make a run at this thing and go 61 miles, so 100 kilometers. Now, I don't know where that guy is or when he intends on doing it, but we knew that even if we broke this record, we might not have it for long. So long story short, I'm already on the way up there. Like, I'm staying at my in-laws in Jersey, and I'm supposed to go the next day, and I read an alert on my phone for like the news, and it's a guy in Missouri who has broken Dwayne Hanson's record. And this is Monday, 2-3 days before we have to go up. Now, thankfully, he went 39 miles. So we were like, hey, if we're going to break Dwayne's record, we can do this. We've mapped it out.
We were originally planning on going 47 miles.
Ooh, we were planning on going 47 miles. And when you get down to where we were trying to take out in Belvedere, New Jersey, there is a rapid below that that's called Foul Rift. And it's like well known to not float that. I mean, like, yeah, I guess some kayakers can do it, but you lose a lot of elevation in like a half mile.
Yep.
And it's past the Delaware water gap, so the water picks up and that sort of thing. We had to be off the river by then. But overall, we were looking at satellite images of this stretch of river for months, and we were mapping out each island. So each island we came to, we knew how far in it was. We knew which way, we thought we knew which way to
Thought
go.
we knew.
There were sunspots on some of these Google Earth things, and we were like, yeah, it's the reflection of the sun. Like, I don't think this is swift water, like the whole thing. That was out the window pretty quick. So we rolled up there with a big team. You know, we had 3 guys. We had
Support
Aiden,
crew.
we had Ralph, we had Taylor, who it's great to see him. He used to work with us. Now he's in New York. But those guys met us up there, and Matt and Reed went up with the 2 giant pumpkins. We stayed in Milford. We stayed at this hotel that's been there since 1850. I forget the name of it.
Hotel Faucher.
Yeah, and so they had all these pictures on the wall. They had like Abraham Lincoln stayed there, JFK stayed there. There was like a wall of fame, and I was kind of like in the back of my head, if we break this, they better put us on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get that picture with your leg
Yeah.
up and the oar next to the
Yeah.
pumpkin.
Hell yeah! I
you
mean,
know?
they probably had George Washington on there, and all he did was cross the Delaware.
Yeah.
This is much more difficult. So, anyways, should we just start talking about the trip, because this is where it's
I
interesting?
think, yeah. We got down to the boat ramp. Brian jumped up, cut you a hole. You got in it. You
Yeah.
took off.
I took off.
You flew.
And I think the first thing I realized was how uncomfortable it was going to be. I mean, like, you guys were in kayaks the whole time. Like, the guy who broke it in Missouri had like 5-6 boats with him. I think he's like a firefighter or something. He had the whole crew. Like, he had the Paw Patrol there. And I had you two in kayaks, which to me was like plenty. And you guys were going to be depth checking. You guys would be going ahead. Like, and people were shocked to hear how primitive our method for finding how deep the river was. Like, we are
Half oar.
we are half paddle, quarter paddle, full paddle. You're good here. So we take off from Milton. We get going. It's cold. It's like 45 degrees, but the water's easy the first stretch. In fact, it's a lot of paddling, and I'm realizing I'm in this fucking thing. It's not like being in a motorcycle sidecar. This thing is like a fucking coffin for my legs.
And it doesn't want to move. It's
It
not
doesn't wanna move.
designed
You're
like a
kneeling, right? So
I'm
kayak.
you're
kneeling. I got my knees down. I have my feet behind me up
Yeah.
against the back of the pumpkin, and my toes are curled on the ground for 12 hours a day over 2 days. But in the beginning, it was just about staying warm and just paddling, trying to keep pace. Anyways, a couple miles in, we ran into, I think, our first bit of adversity.
Our first section was 8 miles, and we got under the bridge. I think you bumped a couple times just past
Started
the
to
bridge.
feel what it feels like
and
to-
we were like, "Whoa, it's that low."
shallower than we
The
thought.
pumpkin, when you would hit a rock, the pumpkin would stop. Your momentum would not.
would
and you
carry
had
you.
the whole your like chest went way out every single time.
So it's basically like riding a bull or something,
Yeah.
I would imagine, but a bull's much harder and everything. But like you feel like you kind of have to hit the rock and you kind of have to balance and move your torso around.
Yeah.
But eventually, and we're 3-4 miles in, we get into this swift water and we're hitting a lot of rocks. And this was my first dump.
Yeah.
Dude, like, and when I tell you I would eject myself out of this pumpkin, because if I tried to like hang on and lost my balance, I'm going to tip the pumpkin.
Right.
The float's going to be over. Like 950-pound pumpkin full of water. Like, how am I getting that flipped? We find out later. But like, I had to eject myself at least 3 times. So I'm cold, I'm beat up, I'm getting sore. The first day is like a real wake up call.
You weren't
for us.
complaining, but I could see on your face these periodic like points of like nerve pain or something. Like all of a sudden you just
Yeah.
grimace real hard.
Yeah, it was hard.
You'd adjust your pad and you just keep
was,
going.
It was hard. And I just want to say this, like, it's physically one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like, you know,
you were comparing it
The
with
Kilimanjaro.
Kili a couple times.
in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like a nonstop glute bridge for a day. I mean, like like when I'm on Kili on summit night, your heart's beating 120 miles an hour. You can't stop breathing. You feel like you're gonna vomit. You have a headache. There's none of that. It's like,
Right.
you know, I'm at sea level in a pumpkin, but the physical toll on your joints is tough. And you know, we're getting down the river, having a good time. We got through the rough water. It got sunny in the afternoon. We were like, all right, this is nice. Like,
that second stretch of 6 miles was what tripped us. You dunked a number of times.
Yeah,
in that
number of
section.
times.
It was rocky. It was low. We might have picked the wrong route a time or two.
and yeah. So long story short,
When you're in the river, just to set the scene a little bit more too, is that it looked like the water level was pretty high on the pumpkin itself. So there was not a lot of room for error.
you can't cut the hole too big because,
Right.
and that's the thing. Like, you want to cut the hole bigger so you have more room, but there's going to be more overflow into the pumpkin.
The pumpkin was what, 3.5 feet tall,
Yeah.
or so, and 3 feet of it is in the water.
Yeah.
And
Like,
it's,
you only have that much.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of room for error.
No.
So if you're going over stuff, it's
yeah.
coming
it's
in.
also
Yeah.
extremely. It's like driving a bus. So when you know that something's coming up, you better turn completely sideways. If you want to get left, you better get sideways and paddle left as hard as you can, like, you know, a quarter mile early.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, if you catch a good current, you can make little adjustments and miss rocks.
Because it's
I
a
did-
round pumpkin. It's
Yeah,
not
it's-
like you have,
it's a-
points in direction that help you
But
steer things.
but
either.
I packed. My wife thought I was going to be on mushrooms, knowing me. She was like, "You're going to be out there on boomers, aren't you?" And I packed boomers. I cannot believe I packed boomers. The boomers didn't even leave my dry bag.
I don't think you thought of
But
them.
once I realized
Yeah.
like how nervous I was, like the night before, I'm sitting in that hotel. I got to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. It felt like a football game.
Yeah.
Again. Like the uncertainty of it, the nerves, the fact that everybody was there. We all went out to dinner, but it had that very business-like feel. By 3-4 hours into the float, I was like, I got 5 pre-rolls in here. I'm not going to be using any of them.
Right.
So like to me, this was like detox too. I had to be dead sober. I couldn't enjoy it the way I would enjoy a normal float. And by the end of the first day, we felt good because we were What?
21 miles in.
21 miles
Yeah,
in.
we wanted to get a little bit further, but we wanted to push as far as we could. We barely made it out with any daylight. We were at like an unofficial takeout point, had to kind of like climb up a hill in the dark. But we made it 21 miles, so we were on pace for the record, and I feel like vibes were pretty good.
Vibes were good, and we decided, hey, we were trying to get this camper delivered on Outdoorsy, which is like it's like
Airbnb
for
camping.
like trailers and shit. And so we were going to get one delivered right up to that campground there. And the last hour and a half was just a dead pond slog, dude.
We could see where we needed to go for so long. And I will say, just to go back, the third quarter of the day was great.
Yeah,
it was
beautiful.
6 miles or something
Beautiful
like that.
day.
Just nice. We didn't have any rock bumps.
Wildlife, bald eagles
everywhere. There were pretty houses along the route. That was a solid. And then we got.
But you don't see anybody out on the river on this,
and the couple
which
people
kind of
we
tripped
did-
me out. Like, this is up in the Poconos.
Yeah.
What's the water temperature?
It's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cold. I don't know what the
like-
water.
Mid-50s.
Yeah.
Mid-50s.
50s when it was warm.
In the morning, when I dumped the second day, and
40.
I'll get there in a second, was like, it was bad. But the first day was mostly smooth sailing with a really rough stretch in the morning.
Yeah.
That basically was like, hey, motherfucker, this is not going to be easy. And when we got to camp, we couldn't get the trailer, like they wouldn't deliver it. So we had to find a place to stay. We drove 30 minutes to a Hampton Inn. That's a total AAU hotel.
Yeah.
I love AAU hotels. They're great because a lot of times when I go to hotels, I'm nervous I can't vape, and I'm going to be the guy that sets off the fire alarm, even though it's a totally unrealistic thing. But at the Hampton Inn, people are vaping, right? Like, so I feel good about that place. We got a solid 6 hours sleep. We got back out there. It's dark in the morning when we get in the car, and I wake up and I'm just feeling beat. But I also know I got 20 miles left, and I'm done with this motherfucker. The first half is over. Burn the ships. Let's do it.
And the way it ended day one, we were feeling good. We were like, get us in the pumpkin. Let's fucking motor.
Yes.
Where's the pumpkin overnight? So you guys are leaving the river, or you're stashing the pumpkin? It's
So
anchored
we
somewhere?
pulled the pumpkin on shore, and we tied it. We had a what do you call
Cargo
that?
net.
A cargo net, and we also tried to tie it around the mast, right?
Yeah.
Tied it against a tree. I was picking up river rocks to dam that thing up so it wouldn't move. But I was initially worried about leaving the pumpkin, but I realized we're in the wilderness, dude. Like there's nobody out there.
around,
When you look at this stretch of river and you look on the terrain map, it's all green for miles in either direction. It's like national forest, that sort of thing. So we didn't worry about the pumpkin. I worried that the pumpkin might be rotted in the morning and that sort of thing. We get there.
Animals.
But we rolled up and we got in the water and we were in at like 7:30, 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we knew daylight was the number one enemy here because we didn't want to go 3 days if we didn't have to. And I also worry the longer we go about the integrity of the pumpkin.
For sure.
Okay, that comes up.
Yep.
So I get in the water. I start paddling. We're at a big bend.
And it's foggy.
And
it's dense.
It's
like you could barely see the trees on the side of the
43 degrees. You can't see much, right? So I get out there. I'm paddling. These guys are catching up. No sooner than they catch up, about maybe a quarter, half mile down the way, Matt and I are paddling along. Reed's off to the side, looking at an eagle or something, maybe checking depth, and we can't see. But we hear cars. Well, I don't hear cars.
I thought it was the highway.
Matt was like, are those cars? I was like, cars, motherfucker. We drove 40 minutes, didn't see a single person. Like, there's no bridges here. That's water. I said, water is coming. We need to figure out what's going on up here. They could not get up ahead. The current was too fast. You didn't want to leave me back in the back because if I dump, like, it's unsafe, that sort of thing. And it started picking up, and I'm hearing we're coming up on a fucking rapid, guys. And we could not pick a clear line through that rapid. Every line I picked, I was getting beat up and couldn't steer because the fucking water's going too fast. And it's terrifying to not be able to slow that thing down and, to be just entering the fog and not knowing what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And I think the funniest part was Matt and I are in these kayaks provided by Appomattox River Company. But, we're like, oh, just pop over here. Oh, come over here. Because we're used to how easy we can ship these kayaks. And you're like,
I'm trying. I'm fucking trying.
I can't.
So the number one thing I said to these guys when we got in was I texted Reed at midnight. And this was me being like, hey, just in case, just know that I texted. I looked at the forecast. I said 43 degrees at 7 a.m. I go, it is going to be fucking cold. And I said to Matt before I got in, I go, the one thing I cannot do this morning is dump. And there wasn't anything these guys could do about it, but I dumped once. I got back in. I'm freezing my ass off. I'm trying to control my breathing. I got dumped again bad where water was coming into the pumpkin and eventually ended up holding on to the pumpkin for dear life while the water's taking us both away, trying to swim over to the side of the shore. This thing's full of water. I'm hyperventilating. Like it is freezing. The water is.
It's 800 pounds too.
Yeah,
probably
and
at
you're
that
just
point.
holding the side of this thing, swimming. There's a great video on your Instagram, but you're just holding on the side. Your Carhartt hat's like on one side of your head. You're paddling through, and you're.
I'm having a hard time.
It looked like a dire situation. When you see that video and you see the fog and you can tell that the water. First of all, the water just fucking looks cold.
Yeah.
It looks
the
cold.
water was cold,
and it was higher than I was expecting.
And thank God there was a sandbar there.
Yeah.
Like that sandbar saved our lives, dude.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like the morale was so low when we got to that sandbar, and I'm shaking. I can't stop shaking. These fuckers are covering me, and like all we had was like a one of those towels that dries, and then like Matt for like 10 minutes, I'm near death, and he's like, "Oh, I do have this Patagonia fleece." It was like a Dumb and Dumber situation.
You had extra gloves this whole time.
But Reed starts building a fire. I'm curled up next to the fire. We're listening to Chris Stapleton. It's on shuffle, and it's like, "Why you gotta be so cold?" And I'm like, "I don't know, motherfucker. I'm trying."
Was there ever a contemplation of like the body heat situation where
I knew I was gonna be okay,
at some
but these
point-
guys were concerned. Matt especially was concerned about hypothermia.
I said half jokingly, like, "Yeah, let's cuddle."
Yeah.
Like, I'll back that ass up.
Yeah, and you guys did cuddle later. It wasn't me, but but on the side of the river, it was a really hard, tough time. And honestly, when I get in these situations, and I'm not trying to turn a pumpkin float into a self-help video, but for me, as somebody who has been challenged my whole life with sports, with like challenges in that world that like humble you and break you down and quite honestly kick your ass sometimes, I have always been somebody who needs these challenges. Like I need to get my ass kicked sometimes. I need to do it to feel like I'm alive. I'm just being honest. Like if I could do this for 2-3 years straight, we could have a bunch of success, but there's part of me that feels dead. And to go do that thing, in that moment, I realized, all right, you got what you wanted. I was like, now you get to find out what you're made of. The next 12 hours of this day are going to be, we're going to see if the old you's still in there. And that's where I kind of had to make a decision and be like, all right, we're burning the ships. We're going. There's nobody there to warm you up. There's no hot car to get into. There's nothing. These guys weren't going to meet us for another 5 hours. Who knows what the rest of the river held? But we eventually got warmed up, got on the river, and
up to that point, because we did lose your phone.
I lost my phone.
So we had lost Matt's
I took
glasses.
that pretty well.
You did. You
did.
were like, my phone. My phone.
When I dumped, bro, my fucking jacket pocket happened to be open, and that thing was gone. The other jacket pocket was zipped up. I had a bunch of Zyn in there. So, like, honestly, in that situation, and by the way, the Zyn got me through that morning. I was like, another Zyn. I didn't want any food. I didn't want any water, but I wanted Zyn.
I did pass the whiskey at one point around the fire.
We busted out the Jim Beam.
Yeah.
Because that did warm me up. I mean, that's how dudes in the Civil War would be like, "Man, I'm getting amputated."
Yeah, I'm losing my arm.
One swig, one for the wound.
I just fucking doing that, dude. We called it Lewis and Clark shit, but at times it did feel like one of those adventure situations where, like, when you watch on TV and then they hype it up going into commercial that like somebody fell in the water, a tree fell on somebody, and it's like, what? And then it just stops, and it's like Ring cameras. That was that moment before the commercial. It was that fucking sequence.
It's straight. It was like when they do commercials for like Survivor and shit.
Yeah.
That's you on the side of the pumpkin, like paddling.
That's your
like
B-roll.
That
was your B-roll. So we got the B-roll, and afterwards, Reeve was like, we're floating down the river. It's a little warmer. He's like, I had my GoPro on the whole time. Like, we're gonna have some good footage. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
It was, if I'm gonna suffer, at least let's have some good fucking content. So we get to going down the way, and the bottom line is, we were paddling for our lives most of the day. It was beautiful out, but we had to get there by sundown. And we were kind of like the whole day and the night before, I was Googling shit because I couldn't go to bed. Like, you think I would be tired, I'd just go right to bed. I fucking was Googling drownings on the Delaware River, of which there are many, evidently. And many of the places were the places coming up for us. And in fact, after we posted this, there were a few people from that area like, why did you choose the water gap, bro?
Because I don't know what I'm doing.
And right now, the fucking water's really rough. And I was like, I noticed that. But like also there's variable depths, variable currents. Sometimes it's a pond. There's a 55-foot eddy that I was told about the night before one of our turns that like, you want to steer clear of that. A big 55-foot hole, dude. And there was this island coming up called Arrow Island. And I couldn't get it out of my head the whole night. It was like, I couldn't get it out of my head the whole day. It was coming at 36 miles. So it was 13 miles in or 15 miles in, depending on if it was the 34 or 36. We weren't sure for a while. But I knew from this picture, you can Google Arrow Island on the Delaware River, and there's this gorgeous picture of the summer, and it looks like the Caribbean. It's so green and blue and beautiful, juxtaposed to what we were looking at beginning of the fall. It just looked. And on that video, on that picture, you could see there are two ways around the island, and both of them look like shit sandwiches. Like one of them looked like deeper, bigger water, and one of them looked like shallower, like choppier water. But it was like straight across the entire channel. So we thought we'd probably be going left. We got up there. It's getting to be about 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. No, it's about 5 o'clock.
Before we even get there, we're in that slow run for a long time. Like, we're feeling great because we think we're going to do this thing. Like,
we're finding out,
your
like,
pumpkin
we're at
seems
33.
Healthy. You're singing Sam Cooke. We're enjoying it.
Yeah.
The drone crashed. Reed dove in and,
we're laughing.
And fished the drone out.
We're having a good time. But, but in the back of my head, like when I used to go to training camp and everybody's enjoying themselves in July, and I'm sitting there and they're like, what's wrong with you? It was Arrow Island. Like, that's what was... And I knew, and it was funny. We ran into the first guy that gave us any information we talked to who's cooking out on the side of the river or something. I said, hey, man, like once you got over the pumpkin thing, I was like, where am I going to run into trouble? You know this area well? He goes, up around the bend. And I was like, all right. I was like, you think it's passable? He goes, I do. But most people don't realize the way a pumpkin sits. So we get up to the bend. We run into these two guys who got a boat. And so I figured they fish this water. They know where the deep water is. We asked these two cats, they're like, you want to go left? That's where the deep water is. So we get around the corner. We see the island. I'm like, okay, we got rapids on both sides. The left side, there is some big water. I'm talking about 3-foot spray coming up, some back channels, some fucking like undertow. Like it's visible that there's some choppy water, and it's hard to know where the deep water, and the problem is if you go deep, you're going to get bigger spray. You're going to get more waves. You're going to get more water over the top of the boat. And if you go shallow, you get less of that. And we are risking a puncture every time we go through this stuff.
Before you get to that point, what is the status of the pumpkin, like the floor of it? Because that was, if you're kneeling on it, you're heavier than anybody, I assume, has done this before. Like one of my concerns when I was thinking about this in my head was the amount of pressure that's going on the bottom of that pumpkin.
I wasn't worried about me putting pressure on it. Once I got in there, I could feel it.
But it's that plus the bottom, right?
So my whole worry was like, what's the bottom look like? Yeah. You don't know. It's like...
We couldn't know.
It's just fucking... It's under you. I can't flip this thing over. It's 950 pounds. And we feel good about it because we have 3 miles left. So once we get through this rapid, I feel like we're home, right? Yep. And we enter the rapid, and I'm starting to get beat up, and I had to bail. I hop back in, and all of a sudden, boom, thump. The water starts filling up in the pumpkin, and it's pretty obvious to me that we have a leak or a hole or a puncture. It's getting dark now, and we're like, at first when the water started coming in that thing, I thought we were done. And when we went on the side of the river, I think Matt thought we were done too.
I was thinking we were done, and then I was kind of freaking out when you wanted to continue, like not verbally, but in my head, because I was noting that it's getting dark, and our support team is saying like, hey, there's nowhere we can meet you for a couple miles.
Yeah, we're in.
And they're like expecting us to come out, and I'm like, he's keeping going.
What time is it? What time is it now?
It's past 7
o'clock. Yeah. 6 o'clock, because the sun goes down at 7, and then after that it's pretty... Yeah. So we get back in. I'm taking on water. I'm bilging every 30 seconds. I'm paddling.
And we find out we have like 2 miles to go.
We got 2 miles to go. And
we also lose a paddle as this happens. So
we're down to 1.5. When you punctured the hole, then as we're trying to like pass paddles back and forth, we lose another one. So we're down to a paddleboard paddle and one half paddle for everybody else.
So
So everybody's doing like one of this oar thing.
We basically know that we've got one chance to land this plane. The thing's smoking, the runway's shitty, but like, let's get it down because it's our only choice. And my whole thing is like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm just not. Like,
Right.
I'm very stubborn. You know that. And I wasn't gonna allow myself to be the reason we didn't get there. If the pumpkin's gonna quit, then the pumpkin's gonna quit. But I'm gonna
can't do anything
sink
about
with
that.
the thing, dude.
We were when you guys were doing this, when Macon was doing the show, we were talking about, you had sent a text or something, and I was gonna make him quit. I was gonna make him quit. I was like,
Who's
talking to
trying?
Macon, I was like, the only way that they're gonna get him to quit is if they sabotage the pumpkin.
Yeah, no, like
Like, that was the only.
that's
route
the only way
that
to
I
do
could
it is
see
to
Yeah,
flying high kick the pumpkin.
So I understand that it wasn't like the wisest decision, but like that's kind of what these exercises are about. Is like, if I'm gonna go out in a fucking blaze of glory, I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory. But at least I tried. And so
Before we get up to this point, I want to reiterate to everybody listening out there who thought we weren't safe. We had throw bags with rope. We had life preservers.
I had a life jacket
We
on.
had
Which is rare for
we
me.
were taking pretty decent precautions.
I'm like Aquaman usually.
Got our
Right.
headlamps
But
on.
I had a fucking life jacket on, and I was glad I did when we tipped in that pumpkin the first time, and I was really glad I did in a little bit. And so it's getting real dusky, and we've got a long straight stretch that leads about a mile up to this bridge that we're looking at, and we're like, is that the bridge? Because we get out of the bridge. Turns out it's not the bridge, but the bridge is a half mile past this first bridge. And I'm saying if we can get to that bridge by dark, we can make that turn and we can finish this thing. But we're not going to know what's ahead when it gets dark.
Mm-hmm.
So the sun goes down and we've got headlamps on, and it's black out there. And we paddle past the last landing that we can get off at. We see the guys there. They're watching us because they're documenting everything to make sure if we're going to break the record, we get the checkpoints. It's at about 38 miles. We see the guys, and we decide not to get off the river. We want to go the last mile. We're nearing the bridge. I'm bilging. Morale is fine, but it's like, it's nervous, you know,
Yeah.
like
Adrenaline is high. Like you
Adrenaline's
realize
high.
the stakes.
You're anticipating what's coming too, and you don't know.
no idea.
We don't know.
And then like earlier in the morning, I heard it before I saw it. In fact, I never saw it. We're nearing this bridge. We don't know which span to go under. All I'm hearing is like a lot of water, and it's pretty clear we're going to the rapids. And I'm saying to myself, like, it is the middle of the night. This is not safe. You know, it's not the middle of the night, but it's effectively black out there. And I'm not going to die doing this, but I am going to give it a run. And we get right up to the rapids. I can see a little bit of white spray, and like, these are big, deep water waves, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's fucking rocks under there, but you just don't know. And all of a sudden, the waves just get too much, go over the front of the pumpkin, and I'm sinking. And the decision I kind of had to make was, do I try to hang on to this pumpkin, or do I hop out and enter the washing machine with my legs and my arms unencumbered with a
Right.
chance to like kick off of whatever I need to kick off of?
And that was, again, we didn't know what was up there. It could be a bunch of rocks. You
Yep.
didn't want to get pinned somewhere.
Yep. And the rapids started as soon as they started, the pumpkin started to sink. And so I'm in the drink. I got to be honest, this was the first moment I was panicking a little bit because of the darkness and not being able to see what was coming. I was trying to reach over and get my torso on the end of Reed's boat, on the back of his kayak, because like, you don't want to enter a rapid just swimming,
Right.
not at night. And as I'm doing that, my big ass like tilts a little bit and Reed falls off. And I'm so glad you didn't die, because I would be sitting here like just kicking myself. Reed's in the water. We're going about 12 miles an hour, it feels like.
It's
And
quick, and
we're going into the washing machine.
we're riding the
And
the
you've
carousel.
lost all your shit.
And
pretty
I've
much.
lost all my shit. And I'm holding on to the back of the kayak, and Reed's holding on to the front of the kayak. And I'm like, Reed, kick your legs, get your legs up, wrap them around the kayak, because this is the type of thing where people don't come back up.
Yeah.
Especially, little secret here, he didn't have a life jacket on at this point.
Mine was on the back of the boat that ended up on the water.
Yeah. And so I'm like thinking, and this is one of those moments, and I've been close a couple times in my life. Y'all were like, have you ever almost died? And I was like, yeah, a couple times. I feel like one was on the New River. where it probably wasn't anywhere close to death, but when you're underwater 8-9 seconds in a hole, when you get dumped off a raft, like, and you're swimming as hard as you can up and you're not coming right up, like that feels like you're going to die. This situation, like, you could kind of smell the danger. Yeah. When danger shows up, like real danger, it's like, it's hard to describe the way your brain processes it, but I was like, danger.
It's
like,
the,
and there's a picture of Reed on the GoPro, and his face, it caught him clinging onto this boat, and his face says danger. Like,
shock.
You want to know how it felt?
Yeah.
Look at his face and that. And so we're floating through this washing machine, just praying, man, that nothing, water coming over the top, the whole thing.
Your flow state. That's what it's called. It's like when you get in that survival mode and your brain or your body releases, like,
it's very clear.
Some kind of thing that just like, this is what I have to do right now to be alive.
Very clear-headed. Very clear-headed.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
And Mother Nature's danger is very different in the sense that it's so unpredictable and powerful.
Yep.
You don't realize how powerful it is until you're in it. Because you're like, oh, fuck, I have no chance.
No idea.
Like,
And
whatever's going to happen is going to happen right now, and I have to do the best I possibly can to survive that.
You always think that, like, with like being on the water or like being in nature, that like I would do this, I would do that, but like the power of water is too powerful, and you just have to hold on. And so we were like fucking maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds through this thing. It felt
longer than that, but we were
like,
there for
we
a while.
gotta get to the side, the whole thing. And I'm like, where's the side? Like, we're just fucking upside down here.
Yeah, we're in the upside down world.
And when you guys went over, I started fishing for all your stuff, and I was holding the giant pumpkin by one arm because I didn't want to let it go.
I wish I knew.
And then I was like, I saw the last paddle floating by far to my left, and I was like, what the fuck am I holding on to this pumpkin for? And I let it sink.
I wish I knew, because I would have tried to go get it.
I know, that's why I didn't say anything.
Oh, so anyways, we got about 3/4 miles.
God damn it, Matt.
We got 3/4 miles left. We're on the side. We get out. We warm up for a second. We come to grips with the fact that we are not going to do this. Okay, we're not going to do this tonight. And I got to tell you, it felt much better than it felt when we had a puncture in the thing. It felt much better than the morning, because at the end of the day, we rode the thing until the wheels fell off.
Absolutely.
And I got to say, when I went into this thing, I thought I would be able to do it, and it would be hard, but like I kind of underestimated it. And it's not like watching film of an opponent. Like, there's nothing I can really do. Like, what could I have done differently? I don't know. Maybe we could have picked a different river, and we might do that next time. Yeah. Maybe there's not a next time. But coming out of it, I said this when we got off the river. Had you told me a week ago that I was going to come a mile short, I wouldn't even got in the truck. But the whole point of doing anything like this is just fucking doing it. Like, push off the dock, just do it. It's a stupid thing. For most people listening, they're like, yeah, stupid. But for anybody that does something hard, whether somebody tells you it's stupid or not, the whole point is to take a chance and test yourself and find out what you got. And I felt like over that 2-day stretch, I absolutely found out what I had. It reminded me what I had. And I feel like coming out of it, I'm better for that. And if it takes floating in a fucking pumpkin 39 miles, as stupid as that is, to explain to my parents why, my mom's texting me the whole time, or my kids are worried about me.
Or they're texting Reed because you lost your phone.
Yeah. But then that's what it's going to take. And, like I said, like, we got off the river and I felt fucking alive. We were all up there thawing out in Portland.
High as fuck on adrenaline.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say you were high as fuck. First thing
I did smoke that joint right after.
We got right into the fucking, the bud. And, like, it just felt like, hey, I've lost football games. I've had bad luck at times. Things have not turned out the way I want them to turn out. And this thing was a failure, but I felt like I was 100% happy we did it. And I had zero shame. Like, if anything, we were riding the truck back, and I'm not going to say this shit outright usually, but I don't feel like a lot of motherfuckers could do that.
You didn't see Dwayne Hansen going through some.
I'm not taking anything away from Dwayne Hansen. Yeah. I'm talking about people I know and respect.
Any rational person would have quit way before you did.
So there you go. So I feel good about that. You know what I mean? But
it's that type 2 fun we were talking about in the car. It's that type 2 fun. Like, type 1 is like, it's fun during and it's fun like afterwards whenever you're recounting. Type 2 is your like during you're like, whoa, I'm a little puckered. Like this is a little, I don't know about this. This
the
is
stories.
yeah. But and then it's at the bar. That's when it becomes fun. Recounting to your buddies on the podcast. Recounting to your buddies. Type 3, we don't need to go to type 3.
Yeah,
I think we're past type 3 in all of our lives.
But that's the whole point. It's like you do things for stories, man. Not even for stories, just so you can reflect
the adventure
and, like,
and
the memory, man. You
Yep.
do things for that. So like, not everything's gonna be easy that you do and fun the whole time. Like this was fun in a really fucked up way.
It's also not going to go according to plan, especially when you're doing stuff like this. Like there are a lot of, and we were talking about this the whole time during the planning of this, because it was months that we were, talking about this weekly and going through all the things. We were at the mercy of the weather, the pumpkin, because that was the thing that was left out a little bit. This was the third pumpkin. I know you kind of touched on that, but this was the third pumpkin. The first two
it was really like
rotted.
the 8th pumpkin, right? Because we had
The
Luke
first
was
two
the
that were
original,
on
and he
site.
had grown us 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And we tried to do those, and then our other buddy Paul tried to grow a couple.
Yeah. So once we got off the river and you get into the truck to warm up, and you
For an
call
hour.
for a while, we turned it up all the way to high and had fresh clothes thanks to Aiden and the guys. What'd you say to Meg and the kids afterwards?
What did I say? I don't remember, honestly.
Or what was their reaction when you told them that you came up short?
So when I called, I FaceTime. I think my wife was like pretty sure after the last conversation at like 6 that we were gonna make it, and they were like, "Hello," and I was like,
"That was fast. That was my fault because like right when we started, I get a text from your mom saying, "Hey, like send pumpkin updates," and I shared my location with her, and then Meg right after send pumpkin. So we've been sending pumpkin updates, and then I hadn't checked in because we were a little focused like through the second day, like the last 2 hours. And they both texted me. They were like, "Hey, how's it going? I know you guys were coming up on the rapid. You haven't checked in." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're about to hit the rapid. I think we're doing all right. We're mile 36. We've got a couple hours.
But it's
we're
good
doing
that you
all
didn't
right."
worry him. If you you should never text my wife and tell him I'm on the side of the river almost hypothermic. You should never tell her there's a hole in the pumpkin. Like tell her later.
Right.
You can lie about when I went under.
Yeah.
You know?
That is so like I said, we're about to come up to this rapid, but I think we're doing all right. And then right after I said that is when we got the hole and
fucking called my kids. I was like, "Hey, I'm alive but I didn't make it, but I am alive." And like it just looked, I think my kids, it's really one of the first times because my kids weren't around when I played like to understand what failure is. And this isn't like a serious thing I get from most people listening. You're like, "You failed at a pumpkin thing. Fucking grow up." Don't grow up, by the way. Be a fucking kid your whole life.
Yeah.
Dream big your whole life. Do stupid shit your whole life that nobody understands. Because the minute you stop doing stuff like that, you start dying, dude. And so like the lesson to my kids was that like you don't have to succeed at things to succeed at things. And that's a really like some people disagree with that. And it's not true in every situation. But I said on the video, trying's enough. So I told him, I just said, "Dude, I fucking sunk the pumpkin, guys. But I had no choice. We gave it our very best. And I feel like I learned something about myself." I was like, I tested myself and we went out and I go, "We're second place in the world, guys. Second place in the world." And they were just like, they went out and got me one of these bowling Little League baseball trophies. And I'm convinced they actually jinxed me because they put the Guinness Book of World Records on the little plaque. Now I got to get it changed, right? Second place in the world on that fucking trophy. But the bottom line is, it didn't matter if we broke the record or not. It's more of a personal thing. And, I called my parents and my mom was laughing at me and my dad was like, "You are one of a kind.
You're a unique individual.
You are unique. There is no one like you." It wasn't like, my dad doesn't understand me. He just doesn't. Me and him are different with shit like this. I don't know, something that makes me want to fuck my life up.
There's no one who has gone down the Delaware River in a pumpkin for as long. So you know how there's a lot of different records per body of water.
Oh, I got the East Coast record.
That's what I'm saying.
There's nobody that could do.
And it was different.
I honestly, and this isn't me puffing my chest out. We were talking about on the way home. There's like survivalists, people that maybe these kayakers like Dane Jackson. I'd love to see those guys do it. Like they would crush it, I'm sure. But they'd also have trouble because there's just no getting around some of this stuff. But as far as like normal dudes with no fucking applicable skill set like me that are just like gripping and ripping it, Like, nah, bro.
Their other experience
you
on
ain't
the
going
water
up and
is,
doing that.
Their other experience
You
on the
ain't
water
doing
is weekend and be like, oh, I just went down to the river and sat on my boat and threw some rocks. Like,
even river rats.
yeah.
Go try it.
Yeah.
It was a motherfucker, dude. And I'm so glad we did it.
I had so much fun. Like, that's some of the most fun I've ever had.
Dude, but that's the thing. Hard shit is fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing hard shit as a group is fun. There is a lot to that. Doing hard shit alone is cool, but like, there's this Misogi thing that my friend was trying to get me to do for the last couple of years. My boy Tom, he's like, yo, I was reading about this Misogi thing. It's in Japanese culture. People do this one hard thing every year. I'm like, well, they don't tell you what to do. No, you got to think about it. You got to figure it out. And it's the thing that really challenges you. Like, people will go out to the beach in Santa Barbara, I think, or one of these beaches in California. You got to carry like a 60-pound rock in the surf for like 3 miles. That's their Misogi. Like, once a year, do something like that. It's a weird group or individualized exercise that achieves this outcome. Do this shit for your Misogi. Boy, this shit was difficult. But these guys crushed it. Couldn't have done it without them. Couldn't have almost done it without them. Couldn't have almost done it without you. And the guys on the side of the river were great because every time we saw them, it's like a big morale boost. And honestly, there were times in the trip that I didn't want to quit because of you guys, because I'm like, y'all drove up here for this child's play shit. Let's fucking see it through.
Yeah.
I'm self-aware. Okay. I know people look at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? What an idiot. He's wasting everybody's time. I get it, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't want to speak for Matt, but it was a blast to be a part of, and it was a blast to watch you work.
It was fun, dude.
Watch you work. You were in the office for sure.
We were
in that pumpkin.
we were in the office, bro.
It was a blast.
It was cool. So.
And then we had the most dangerous part of the whole trip, which was me
You
driving
driving
6
home.
hours without my glasses.
Dude, I've never fallen asleep in the car since I was like a kid. I think I fell asleep on the way home from Pearl Jam concert at like Nissan Pavilion or something, or no, I forget which pavilion. It was one of the, but I haven't fallen asleep in a car since then. And you after losing your glasses, driving that car on 81 for 6 hours in the middle of the night, that was the most dangerous part statistically of the entire trip. And me and Reed were both asleep. We never would have woke up.
I was slapping myself like just
Well,
lightly
you wanna be
enough that
asleep,
you wouldn't
right,
wake
in a
up.
car.
You do, because there's
anything
people
happens.
that survive.
Yeah,
You're just
right.
totally relaxed.
Exactly.
I was like, well, Matt's going to die, but me and Reed are going to be like,
Jello
Flying
in the
in the
wind.
sky.
bro, I got in that sheets. I took a piss.
Yeah.
And it was brown. You know the Tom Herman piss chart thing?
Uh-huh.
I'm a bad teammate was where I would have landed on that thing, dude. I don't know. I don't know where I was physically, but I woke up the next day, and to give you the back end of it, I couldn't walk. It felt like 2 football games. It felt like I played a football game. That's the closest I've felt since I got out to feeling like you play a football game, where you wake up in the morning, you're delirious, you can't walk to the bathroom. My feet hurt, muscles that I didn't even know exist hurt. They're still hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still tired, but we wanted to put a bow on it and tell you guys about all the bullshit we did. So if you're a core Greenlight listener and you enjoyed checking this one out, we appreciate you. We'll do stupid shit like this from time to time. Send in suggestions. I love this. I feel alive again. So, I don't know if it's like fucking maybe not swim with alligators, but like give us some adventures that you think we should try.
We're game just to do just about anything except that ridiculous marathon, the Berkeley's, I think it's called.
What's that?
It's like the Ozarks. It's literally like a backwoods marathon. You do 26.2 mile loops, but you have to do like 5 of them or 10 of them.
No.
There's no trail. There's no
Oh,
trail.
it's 5 marathons?
Yeah. It's like 100 miles or 150 miles
Oh,
or
I think I
something
heard
like that.
about this.
Yeah. And there's no trail. You have to go off a compass and stuff. And there's like stashes of
Too
food
much
or anything.
thinking.
This has
Yeah.
Dave,
Give
that
us
has
some
Dave
stuff.
Obora
It's
written
Give
all
us some
over it.
stuff
Yeah.
that you just gotta be stubborn,
Right. Right.
or ballsy.
Yeah.
We'll do that,
Yeah.
but not smart,
Right.
not adept.
Yeah. We don't
don't have
need
any skills.
compasses. We don't need that.
People think,
skills.
yeah, I'm an outdoors. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
The guy on the phone the night before was like, "I'll send you all the coordinates," and then I was googling. I was like, "How do you read coordinates?"
Fuck, dude. We're looking at Google Maps. We're a blue dot on Google Maps. Do you have Google Maps?
Yeah.
My buddy, Dave Bora, he just did Leadville
Yeah, he's a beast.
and came up.
Race is not
short,
easy.
but like he said it was, and he was crushed not to finish it.
Yeah.
My boy Nate Boyer finished it.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I don't know that we do anything like that, but give us some ideas.
Yeah.
Made me want to do another river trip, like just on the kayak.
Dude, we got to go back in
It was
kayaks.
gorgeous.
Do some tough rapids too. Yeah.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah. Maybe any of you green light listeners that live up in that area, if you want to float with us, we could do a green light float.
Yeah.
Good chill.
You know, I'm
Group
not sure if
float.
I
That'd be
want to
fun.
follow through with that, but I just kind of sounded
It's an
good.
idea.
You know, we'll cap it at like 5 or something.
Yeah.
And everybody has to take shrooms and wear a and wear a life jacket.
And
Life
sign,
jackets.
and sign a waiver.
Yeah.
And a waiver.
Sign a waiver.
So that's it, guys. We will be back tomorrow. This is a special occasion podcast. Tomorrow we will be back with Stanford Steve for our locks and our college football and all that stuff. So make sure you like and subscribe. Happy Halloween. I can't even look at fucking pumpkins. I was at Whole Foods. They had them all out there. I was like, you people out here picking your pumpkins.
Every
How
time I
easy.
see a pumpkin now, I have like a Pavlovian response of anger against it. Like it's
Anger,
taunting
dude.
me.
The last couple nights I've been trying to go to sleep and just seeing water. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we were in the car,
All
you
around
go
you.
over a bump because you couldn't see shit, you know, so you're, we go over a bump and I thought I was like waking up and I was like, oh no, oh no.
PTSD from the
Yeah,
pumpkin.
yeah, exactly, dude. So
If you want more updates from the Greenlight crew, go to greenlightpodcast.com, enter your email, and you will get a weekly newsletter